a few years ago, Reverend Samuel Rodriguez and I came together, and we felt like it was time for a new, like once-in-a-generation representative body of evangelicals to be formed, because between he and I, we had served on the boards of most of the other, types of organizations that represent evangelicals, and we travel all around the world. And very often what we were discovering is that there are a lot of churches around the world that don't feel like they have a voice representing them, advocating for their religious freedom or for their right to preach the gospel. And so a few years ago, Reverend Rodriguez and I founded the Congress of Christian Leaders as a once-in-a-century new association of evangelical Christians. You can find us at evangelicals.com or evangelicals.org. Our goal is to be a voice for Christians, not just in the United States of America, but all over the entire world. And it's really simple. We support the church, we advocate for religious freedom, and we make sure the bad guys all around the world know we have their eyes on them.
And when we talk about bad guys, I think that probably when you say that term, probably there are some groups or even individuals that would come to mind. We recognize that we live in a world, you have good, you have evil. And there are those that are intent on doing evil. You have Christians who are trying to uphold the good, and some of them are losing their lives for it. So when you talk about really, the quote unquote the bad guys, the real, I guess, locales of evil and the organizations where evil is really being carried out, what would you how would you describe some of these organizations and people?
Bob, it's where I live in Washington D.C. You don't talk about good and evil in polite company, they say. But whatever people.
But we should.
Yeah. Whatever people think in Washington D.C. The fact of the matter is there is good and there is evil in this world.
Yeah.
And
we got to recognize that.
And it's no coincidence that most of the evil movements in this world also target Christians. And so when we think about like who persecutes Christians the most, I think a lot of people would think like maybe Islamic terrorists persecute Christians the most. But actually, statistically speaking, the foremost persecutors of Christians in the world are still communists. They have been communists for the last century. And sure, horrific things are happening at the hand of terrorists, but on scale. And by the way, this is alarming to me as an American because it's become sort of like popular in some aspects of progressive society in the United States and some of our biggest universities to play around with these progressive, communist, socialist sorts of ideas. But that bodes very, very badly for Christians in history.
Well, let's talk about the good that is taking place. And I want our listeners to kind of take a little journey with Johnnie right now. There's a little alliteration there, but a little journey to the fact that we've got churches, we've got ministry organizations that are, well, we can say like this, God has deployed them all around the world. Now, of course, we recognize our day-to-day life. There are things that we keep up with, and we go to church, and we like our church, hopefully, and that's great. I think it's also important for believers to have a sense of what they are part of. And there is a tremendous global movement of Christianity. It has to do with evangelical churches, evangelical ministries that are carrying out the work of God. People are getting saved. People are coming into the fellowship of believers. And the church is a powerful force for good in this world. How powerful is it?
Well, look, I often say, Bob, that it's time, not to be arrogant, but it's time for Christians to get rid of the inferiority complex, okay? Because we have a lot to be proud of.
Yeah.
I mean, all over the world. There isn't a disaster that has taken place in the last year where the Church of Jesus Christ wasn't on the front lines of helping people in need. There are Christians all around the world that don't have two dimes to rub together, but what they do is they spend their entire life serving those in need. And if you travel like I do all around the world, in most of the countries that I visit, the first hospital in that country and the first university or secondary school in the country very often were started by evangelical Christians. I mean, I like to tell the story of the UAE. This country, the United Arab Emirates, where Dubai is and all of this, it's an extraordinary place. It's 55 years old. It's like something out of a movie. It was a desert that turned into this immaculate, incredible city. Everybody wants to go to Dubai once in their life. Well, what people may not know is that about 55 years ago, Dubai, the UAE, didn't exist. But 10 years before that, a Christian couple went and started the first hospital in the UAE. There wasn't a hospital in the country